Today we have Akshat Agrawal joining us from Gold Red Consulting. Good evening to you, Akshat. Hope you're doing well.
Good evening, Jason. Yeah, thanks.
Amazing. So, uh, change management, as we discussed before starting the session, is very important. Uh, Whether it's an organizational or a transformational change, or maybe a self or an individual change, it matters the most. And when you are resistant to it, then it becomes difficult for implementations. I believe that communication is a cornerstone for every successful cross functional collaboration. And this is the key thing which we are also focusing on today's discussion. Uh, Before starting the podcast, let me give a few books to our audience in reference to what we are going to discuss today. One would be The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, a leadership fable by Patrick Lencioni. The other would be Collaboration: How Leaders Avoid the Traps, Build Common Ground, and Reap Big Results by Morten Hansen. And we are going to discuss on some elements on the importance of stakeholder management or stakeholder engagement in change management. The first question which comes to my mind, Akshat, would be what are the techniques an organization can use to foster effective cross functional collaboration among multi diverse or diversified teams?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Jason. I mean, great topic and a very good question to start with. One of the book that you recommended, Five Dysfunctions, is one of the book that I keep referring to very often.
Yeah.
And we see those dysfunctions happening within the team in many of our implementations as well. So, yeah, but okay, coming back to the question, I would like to use a lot of my experience of doing these cross-functional collaborative efforts, because any change that we do, none of the change that I have done or I have remember is only concerned with one department, even if that one department will be the one which will be having major impact, but it would need collaboration with other teams, right? So most often, I mean, very rarely you would see that any change is focused only with one department, and we can just ignore others. So that's a very critical thing to do. Now, one of the technique which I would like to elaborate, which we use very often for achieving cross-functional collaboration, is what we call as evaporating cloud technique, which is a TOC's methodology of um, achieving this cross-functional collaboration. Now, see, there are various techniques which is available, like effective communication, as you mentioned, or having a collaborative environment, or making sure that the goals are common and it is made very clear. So these to me are a necessary condition. Without this you cannot achieve, for sure. But all these necessary condition doesn't mean that if it is all there you will still achieve the collaboration required, right? It is not sufficient. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient, right? Now, one of the sufficiency condition that I feel gets often missed out is each of these departments have a certain needs, right? Let me take an example to put this point more clear. And this is the technique which we use, as I said, evaporating cloud technique. So let's say one of the change initiative is driven towards achieving the goal of improving the profitability of the company. Right? That's the goal, which is very clearly told, communicated. All the stakeholders agree. So all of those necessary conditions are ticked. But now there are two different needs. It needs of two different departments. Let's take the department as major department as sales department, and other major department as a production department, right?
Yeah.
Now, for achieving high profitability of the company, the sales department has to make sure that they sell more, the revenue increases, right? That's how the profitability can increase. At the same time, production department's role in this initiative is to reduce the cost, right? So on one side you have to reduce the cost, which is one need to achieve the goal, and on the other side you have to increase the revenue, which is another need to achieve that same goal, right? So sales department is responsible for revenue side, and production department is responsible for the cost side. Now it becomes interesting, right? Everything is good here, but now for production department to control the cost, they will take certain actions, like they will produce in large batches because they want to improve the efficiency and hence reduce the cost.
Right.
On the other side, for the sales department to increase the revenue, they have to go to more customers. That might mean that much smaller sized orders,
Mm.
much variety of orders. So now as the variety and increases or the size of the order reduces, it is expected that production should produce in smaller batches. Right? So now you see both the needs are very genuine, the goal is very common, but the actions what is required to meet those needs by individual departments are in conflict.
Yeah.
So that's where we see that most of the collaborative effort doesn't work out. We want production to collaborate and sales to collaborate to achieve the goal, but then that doesn't happen. Even if all the necessary conditions, communications are made well, roles are clear, everything is there. Collaborative environment is there. Leadership is focusing on that, but it doesn't happen. So what TOC what we do in theory of constraints is call this thing what I just described with a common goal and two needs with a conflicting action. This we call it as a conflict cloud. It's
Okay.
a cloud, and the technique is how do you evaporate the cloud? We don't want to balance between the two needs. We don't say that okay, you batch but only batch to a certain extent, and sales you sell but don't sell to the customers beyond this size, or
Right.
we don't want to balance between the two. We want to have a way that it both the needs are achieved by certain actions,
Mm.
and then that's how conflict cloud gets evaporated, right?
Mm.
So I would say this is a very powerful technique. We can discuss more in detail, but uh, it is important to understand sufficiencies required to achieve collaboration and not just go with the necessary conditions.
And I think communication is one of the key factors in getting the things done, especially at different levels in an organization. What do you suggest the role of communication here?
Yeah, Jason. So communication is very effective,
Mm.
but in my experience, limited experience, it is a very misused word. Everyone understands, yes, communication, but what actually communication means. Okay,
Yeah.
there are different levels of communication. Let me explain what I mean. So, one communication is I have told you something. Okay, so is that it? But maybe that's not enough. Second level of communication is you understand what I'm saying. Okay,
Mm.
that's then the communication is done. But then there is a third layer is you agree to that. First you understand and then you agree and accept that, yeah, this makes sense, whatever you're saying, and I will do. In fact, when I was, one of the thing when you ask me this question that comes to my mind is a very recent example with one kid. Okay,
Okay.
a very small kid who was living in our apartment. He came to our house and started raining heavily. So we gave them an umbrella because he was going back home. So there's a small distance he needs to cover. So I said, fine, it's raining, so please take the umbrella. That's what we said. It's
Yeah.
raining, please take the umbrella. So the communication is done, right? We have told, okay, and child said, okay, fine, I will take it. So it's all done. But
Mm.
then when he reached home, he was wet.
You didn't use it.
So, yeah, so then, very curious, what happened? Why are you so wet? You had umbrella. So, yeah, I had umbrella because they asked me to take the umbrella. So I took the umbrella.
Mm.
But then, why didn't you not open it
Mm.
when you came out? Because I like to get wet and rain. Umbrella will not help me to. So, you see, this is the mistake in communication. We don't want the child to get wet because he may get sick, right? Like, for example. Now, the entire thing is not understood by the child. We only communicated that it's raining, please take the umbrella. It's
Right.
because, and we assumed that the child understands that getting wet would lead to being sick, and it's not good to be sick, and hence, he needs to open the umbrella. So, entire thing there are these hidden assumptions when we speak to each other. We make a
Mm,
lot of assumptions that these words are understood same way which I mean or which I understand. Now, all of that, if it is not communicated, in a way where the other guy accepts it in the same way and then agrees to doing that, the whole thing is not enough. The communication is not done.
mm.
So that's what I mean. Communication is critical, but it has to be done in the right way and thoroughly.
Yeah, so effective communication matters.
Absolutely.
Said, yeah. So it's about understanding what the goals are, and somebody should take the lead in having that kind of a common platform. And I think that's the way where stakeholder management or stakeholders say in a particular solution would matter. So in a problem, there are multiple stakeholders involved. Maybe it operations, finance, sales, or even procurement, supply chain. So, how important it is to get their say to go ahead, and would effective communication and stakeholder management solve that uh, problem?
hmm I think it's all linked, Jason, what we discussed. All in any change initiatives,
Hmm,
stakeholders are multiple,
true,
and that's why we need the cross functional collaboration, right? The functions are all the different stakeholders.
true,
Some are directly involved, some are just the beneficiary of the change, and some are helping in that change. So there are multiple stakeholders. All of them, of course, we need to take them along. There is no doubt that should it be or should not be.
right.
um, and it should be done earlier in the initiatives as it began rather than much later. Uh, but one thing which I see, I mean, one of course is the different needs who are actually participating in the change itself. But then there are these measurement, there are these local optimas,
Hmm,
which is very very common in any organization. Sales team has their own measurements, own optimas. Purchase, logistics, warehousing, everyone has their own optimas, right? Now, often these local optimas are not aligned
yeah,
to the global optimas, and it leads to major conflicts or major gaps in the communication, because no one would very upfront say that I don't agree that this should be done, but it
hmm,
should be done my way, which helps me. Okay,
hmm,
because at the end of the day, I am the manager or I am the person responsible for this department, while there's a bigger goal there.
yeah,
So, in fact, Ali had a very famous saying, Ali Goldratt, who's the founder of TOC. Uh, he used to say that, tell me how you measure me, and I will tell you how I will behave.
yeah,
You measure me illogically, I will be, and don't ask me, I also don't know how I will behave.
yeah.
So it's often not very clear how the things are going to be measured, how it is going to be impacting that particular department's KRA for that change initiatives. Now
True.
all of that is part of the communication, of course, as you said, and all of it is very very critical to achieve a successful collaborative environment or successful collaboration with the stakeholders.
Hmm.
Without that, expecting that the change initiative will be successful is not possible. It will be successful till the time the someone is driving it from the top. There is a pressure. People will do it just because out of that pressure. But the moment that pressure is released, you see that whole change initiatives going back to where it all started.
And I think the right stakeholders should also be involved. Is it's like when you implement a project, if you're not involving one key stakeholder and you're just taking the decisions, then ultimately that particular project will lead to kind of a challenge at some point of implementation. So
Absolutely.
that's very important. Also, I would like to ask you, in your vast experience in your career, how important it is to have kind of uh, positive approach in each stakeholder management's collaborative effort, because there would be a lot of resistance when you implement a change. And if it's a drastic change, a 360-degree transformation, then you have to have a lot of opinions and outlooks from different departments. So, in your experience, have you faced such challenges?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the daily activity. right?
Mm.
In any consulting engagement, that's the most critical one.
Yeah.
But I have never met someone who is resisting change
Mm.
because he just wants to enjoy life, okay, and not do anything.
Mm.
Very, very few. I mean, 0.001, maybe one rare few who just don't want to. Most often, those people will be anyway kicked out of the
Yeah.
organization anyway. But most people are resisting change
Mm.
not because they don't want to work or they don't want to change. They are resisting change because they are seeing something which, as a change initiator, you are probably not seeing. Like, I can be very excited about any change initiative, let's say bringing a new product. I'm very
Right.
excited. This new product would help. I'm a sales guy, this is what customer needs. This is what competitors are coming with. So I am only seeing one part of that change.
Mm.
But the other guy might be seeing some other part of the change, hence he's resisting. Now it's easy, or it's one way, one approach that I just push through that. No, this product has to come,
Mm.
and I don't bother, and you please make that change. So that guy, poor guy, may accept it and do it, but then the thing which he was seeing will haunt us later on when we actually start seeing that. Right? Now that so any resistance we believe is an opportunity for us to unearth what we is there which we should know in advance so that we can modify whatever is needed to be done to take care of that,
Right.
and
Right.
not say that this change is not required, while of course this change is required, but when you're actually doing it, you should take care of those things.
Mm.
So it's very, very critical to kind of spend time with those resistance to change as people, and not just say that, oh man, again this guy is resisting the change. I mean, it's a huge opportunity to figure out a problem in advance if someone is resisting a change,
Right.
right?
And would you like to share some KPIs or metrics in regards to this?
First we should first we should realize that there is this conflict exists, like one we discussed about production and sales, right? Very often, like today only we were discussing with the logistics team. So they were saying that I will only supply full truckload. I cannot supply part truckload.
Okay.
Now the sales guy is shouting, "Boss, my stores are empty. I need the order." Now this guy is saying, "Boss, either you uh, take full truckload or wait for the order to add up to full truckload. So I'll
Yeah.
send you." Now, huge problem. My sales are getting lost. I don't have money to buy more orders, more quantity, and the logistics is right that, boss, I cannot do. Now, these are the resistance to change, right? We are telling boss you have to supply every day, irrespective. Now we cannot do like that without changing the KPIs, right?
Mm. Mm.
So it is very, very important to find out those needs, find out those assumptions, why resistance to change is happening. And often people talk about stakeholder engagements,
Right.
right? How good are they engaging? Now, it's not that logistics team in this example is not trying to engage. They want to engage. They also want to do good for the company.
Yeah.
But then, I can't do it because there are certain local measures which I have.
Mm. Right. Right. So, we've been discussing some techniques for aligning diverse teams and perspectives in terms of cross-functional collaboration with Akshat for the last 20-25 minutes. We discussed the importance of stakeholder engagement and change management as well. Akshat, would you like to do your concluding remarks on today's podcast? Just 2 minutes before we wind up today's podcast.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, very interesting topic, and this topic is to really do the justice to this topic, it would need maybe hours of
Yeah,
discussions because it's such an important topic and such a
right,
critical one.
right,
Um, See, the end objective of any change initiative is you are expecting certain tangible results out of it, and
right,
that result should sustain.
right,
So, whether you have done effective communication, whether you have done effective stakeholder engagement or not, the answer to that will come only when you see the results. So, if the results are not coming, if you see that things are getting delayed, then there is somewhere that we missed. Either we have not talked to the right stakeholders, either we have not communicated effectively, either we have not seen some of the local optimas, or we have there are some hidden assumptions. So we
Mhm.
have to go back and resolve it instead of trying to push through. Any problem is an opportunity to, figure out what we missed in this whole process.
And I think if you sit on the problem for a longer period of time without actually solving it, it also could lead into some kind of disaster going
Absolutely.
forward. Yeah,
Absolutely. It just adds up. It keeps adding up, and it's the vicious cycle that keeps running, and it only grows bigger.
yeah, yeah. So, on that note, thank you, Akshat, for joining in such a very important topic. We'll come back with newer topics in the next podcast. Till then, have a great evening.